In Genshin's 5 years, there are a lot of bosses and even more lore, and I'm going to talk about it. This is going to be about bosses from the Archon quest and the world quests. If there's an enemy not on this list, it's probably on the other list where I rank the saddest enemies to fight. People ask for this video and I'm going to deliver, because if I don't do it soon, I won't do it at all. Just like the Vision video I was supposed to redo. Whoops, sorry about that, my bad. I'm going to start this list with the least terrifying and work my way to the most terrifying. Just a disclaimer, this is not a power scaling list. This list is fluid and very subjective. It's mostly vibes. I just want to talk about lore, so let's get started. The Core Guardian is a defense unit inside the Kuvaki Experimental Design Bureau in Notcry. There's really not much to say about it. It is the most boring and least threatening boss in this video. I completely forgot it was a thing that we fought. It only goes up from here, I promise. Ferigees is from the Dirge of Bilquis quest, and she's a djinn that served Nabu Malikata, the goddess of flowers. She's connected to Lilipor, the djinn that everybody loves to hate. For context, Lilipor fell in love with a man named Ormaz because she believed that he would free the world from slavery. But he didn't. Instead, he became Gerbat's tyrannical ruler, so Lilipor cursed him and his entire bloodline. This is important because Ferigees knew the destruction that Lilipor's plan was going to bring, so she sacrificed her body to protect the people and Nabu Malikata's slumber. She did this by indwelling a machine. The reason that the Traveler is involved with all of this nonsense is related to a completely different quest with one of my favorite characters in Genshin, Jet. Long story short, Jet wants to put her parents' keepsakes to rest in the Eternal Oasis, which is a memorial built by King Deshret for Nabu Malikata. Ferigees is the one protecting the entrance, so they fight her and find the Eternal Oasis. This questline has so much lore, and this is barely scratching the surface, but we gotta move on. The Miasmic Tumor is from the Sacred Sakura Cleansing Ritual World Quest. In Inazuma, the Sacred Sakura and the Thunder Sakura trees are able to cleanse the earth of abyssal energy by absorbing it. The problem is that the roots need to be cleansed. Every 60 years, the roots need to go through a major cleaning process, because the filth accumulated will turn into a miasmic tumor. If left alone, the sacred Sakura will wither and abyssal monsters will run rampant, which is something that almost happened a long time ago. The Traveler meets a masked shrine maiden who is the embodiment of Kitsune Saigu's memories. She helps the Traveler purify the sacred Sakura and save Inazuma. Marana's avatar, oh boy. If you were one of the resilient souls that made it through the Aranara quest, then you should remember Marana's avatar. It's similar to the Miasmic Tumor in the sense that it's a mass of abyssal energy. In Sumeru, there's something called the Withering or the Black Tide. The Withering came to Sumeru when Apep, the dragon sovereign of Dendro, who is later on this list, was corrupted by forbidden knowledge. The corrupted elemental lifeforms inside of her escaped, and when they died, they created the Withering. The Withering is incredibly dangerous to humans, especially for those who don't have a vision. A deadly disease called Elazar is one of its effects. Marana is the Aranara name for the Withering. To summarize, a very long 16-hour quest, give or take, the Traveler meets a girl named Rana who is sick by Marana, and with the help of an Aranara named Arama, the Traveler goes on a quest to cure her. I hope that tongue twister of a sentence made sense to you. To cure her, they need a fruit called the Bija, but the tree that grows it is too weak, so they need to grow a new one. However, the tree cannot grow unless you defeat Marana's avatar. Arama sacrifices himself to become the new tree. The Traveler gets the Bija fruit and cures Rana. That is the Aranaka quest, summarized as simply as possible. Boreas, also known as Andrius, is the North Wind of Mondstadt, and during the Archon War, Boreas declared war against Decabrian, the god of storms, and the tyrant to his people. This era was known as the Age of Kings, and Boreas couldn't even scratch his kingdom because it was protected by a powerful wind. Decabrian's reign ended when Barbados and other freedom fighters had rebelled against him. Boreas believed that he was unworthy to become the Animal Archon because he believed that his blizzards would only hurt others, but more importantly, because he didn't have a love for humanity. When he died, he let his power flow and protect others. He became one of Mondstadt's 4 winds during Vanessa's rebellion. Now his spirit resides in Wolvendom and protects Razor and the other wolves in the pack. The game before the gate is interesting because there isn't that much we know about it. In the main story, it's used to test Albedo before the Hexenzirkel can help him. According to the archive, although their technological underpinnings are far from obtruse and touch not upon the profound wisdom at the universe's core, yet as guards of the gate's final threshold, they are a metaphor in and of themselves. This world may be governed by rules, but for those who manage to cross its verge, such constraints no longer apply. Chess is a pretty important metaphor in Genshin's lore. Although Gnosis are chess pieces, Impero talks about chess in the Winter Lazo trailer. There's a lot of speculation for what the metaphor means because it's a theory that's been around since the game's launch, and this boss adds to those existing theories. The Primeval Source Dragon Mech is in the quest with your Saurian companion. Throughout multiple quests, you find a couple of artifacts and get sent to a great volcano. When you get to its core, you face a final test. The mech traps the traveler in Paimon, and the little one meets the dragon sage Och-Kan. The little one is the chosen of dragons and has the Flame Lord's blessing. Och-Kan shows the little one Huitzilopochtli, which is a doomsday device. It's designed to turn Natlan and eventually the whole world into phlogiston. It was designed by Shukadal, the dragon sovereign of Pyro, and Kukulkan's brother. It was going to destroy the abyss once and for all, but Kukulkan was against it because he believed humanity could surpass dragon civilization. After his brother's death and seeing how divided humanity was, he became a bit of a doomer and believed maybe doomsday wasn't that bad of an idea. But he lets the little one make the decision. Your Saurian companion remembers its journey with the traveler and chooses not to activate the device. The little one helps the traveler defeat the dragon mech and they escape the volcano together. Childe is a character that is a fan favorite for good reason. As a child, he fell into the abyss and was trained by Skirk. He will fight anything and anybody. The stronger the opponent, the happier he gets. He even nerfs himself by using a bow because it's the weapon he's the weakest at. He's also the least mysterious of the Fatui Harbingers because while the other Harbingers like to work in the shadows, he's front and center in the public. He also doesn't use lethal force against his own soldiers. What makes him so endearing to the Genshin community is his loyalty and commitment to others. This man is ride or die for the Tsaritsa, but more importantly, his family. This man is always thinking of ways to make his siblings happy. He gives them gifts whenever he can. He even puts his body on the line to protect them and make them happy. In a lot of ways, he's solid. Good dude. In the Liyue Archon quest, however, he does release an ancient monster on the people of Liyue. He did think that Zhongli would come out of hiding and defend the people, but it was still a massive risk. I like the guy, but that was a dick move. Since then, he's been friendly with the Traveler. We've seen him in Fontaine, Inazuma, and I'm sure we'll see him again in the future, especially because we're reaching Snezhnaya pretty soon. Oh, Signora, your lore was completely underused. Signora lived in Mondstadt 500 years ago before the Cataclysm, but she moved to Sumeru to study in the academia. Before she left, her lover Rostam and deputy master of the Knights of Favonius had given her a timepiece that would count down the time it would take for her to return. But then, the Cataclysm happens and Rostam dies, which causes her to abandon her mortal body and become an embodiment of liquid fire. As the Witch of Crimson Flame, she channeled her grief and rage by burning monsters, but the people were still afraid of her. At some point, Pierrot found her and gave her a cryo delusion to suppress her flames. This brings us to the main Archon quest, where she goes around nation to nation as a diplomat and covertly sows discord. She also kicks Venti as an act of personal vengeance, as she most likely blames him and the other Archons for the Cataclysm. Eventually, she loses a duel against the Traveler and is killed by Raiden. Really cool scene, but it's disappointing that's how she goes out. Och-Kan and the Dragon of the City of Flowing Ash are the same character, so they're going to share a spot. Och-Kan was the son of Kukulkan. He was a dragon with a human soul. As a child, he was subjected to different experiments until he escaped, which fostered a hatred for dragons. He had met Xbalanque before he was the Pyro Archon and was treated with kindness. Och-Kan became his devout follower. Xbalanque had created the empire of Och-Kan but left to enter the Sacred Flame. This meant that Och-Kan would become the new king. However, his devotion made him a tyrant. He believed that Xbalanque should be the one and only god. His hatred for dragons also caused him to break Xbalanque's commandment of coexistence with the humans and dragons. Och-Kan would eventually be overthrown by the Scar-Eyed Youth. Och-Kan fell into a pitch-black mire and was assumed to be dead. Golden rule of fiction: no body, no death. Och-Kan had survived by splitting his mind and body. His body was used to make the Fel Dragon, and his mind became Kokoweek. When the two fused, they became Och-Kan's true form, which is the boss that the Traveler fights. Narzissenkruez is from one of the most lore-dense quests in the game, and it was so much fun. The story begins 500 years ago. The Narzissenkruez Institute was an organization that raised orphans and the children of criminals. The institute was home to 4 children that would change Fontaine's history: Alain Guillotine, Marianne Guillotine, René Petrichor, and Jacob Ingold. This is mainly going to focus on René and Jacob. When René and Jacob grew up, they studied the Kanyun ruins in Sumeru and discovered the world formula, which predicted an upcoming apocalypse. René tried to get Elaine's help, but he didn't believe that the world formula's calculations were correct and denied to help. Renee gained followers and created the Narzissenkruez Ordo. To avoid the apocalypse, Renee's plan was to combine the people's will into one transcendental being, which was something he learned from the ancient civilization of Remuria, which was a good idea and definitely worked. Renee used himself as a test subject and it failed. Renee's consciousness still existed, but he no longer had a body. So Jacob continued the research. He used the factors of the Ordo as test subjects. Using conjuring techniques and a pocket watch from Elaine, he was able to create a special water tulpa and put Renee's consciousness into it, creating Narzissenkruez, or the Master. At the same time, the Narzissenkruez Ordo was being investigated by the Marusese Phantoms, which Elaine and Marianne had joined. Narzissenkruez tried to convince Elaine again, but Elaine stood his ground. The fight between the Ordo and the Marusese Phantoms ended with Narzissenkruez falling deep into the Primordial Sea. This finally brings us to the current time with the Traveler. Jacob is still alive. Renee had saved Jacob's life during their trip to Sumeru by using abyssal power. This made Jacob into a neo-human. He wanted to create the Holy Blade to free Narzissenkruez. After being defeated by the Traveler, Jacob helps reforge the Holy Blade, then gets crushed by the hands of the Doomsday Clock. The Traveler defeats Narzissenkruez and resealed the entrance to the Primordial Sea. It's interesting to note that the Traveler's presence as a Descender had changed the world formula, essentially changing fate. Osial, also known as the Overlord of the Vortex, is an ancient god that rivaled Zhongli during the Archon War. He could make waves that were as tall as Liyue's mountains. Zhongli defeated Osial by pinning him down in the deep sea with the Vortex Vanquisher. In the Liyue Archon quest, Childe releases Osial as a way to lure out Rex Lapis. The Traveler, the Adeptus, and the people of Liyue fought against it. Osial gets defeated when Ningguang uses the Jade Chamber as a weapon and drops it on him. Best moment of that Archon quest by far. We also have Beisht, who's Osial's wife, who wanted to get revenge 1 year later. As for why she didn't get revenge sooner, I don't know, she was grieving, leave her alone. Beidou warned Ningguang of her presence, so Ningguang rebuilt the Jade Chamber because she knew it would provoke Beisht. Which means Ningguang essentially rage baited a god. The Traveler and Shenhe defeat her and Yunjin sings a song to celebrate. It's a good time. If they have kids, we're taking them down too, okay? We're gonna make it a full family combo. Next we have Stormterror. Stormterror, or Dvalin, is the dragon of the east and one of the four winds. When Dvalin first came to Mondstadt, he unintentionally destroyed and scared the people. Things changed when he heard Venti playing the Holy Lyre to Himmel. Dvalin then learned human speech and how to sing, which made people less afraid of him. During the Cataclysm, Durin came to Mondstadt and attacked. With Barbatos' help, they defeated Durin and saved Mondstadt, but Durin's corrupted blood caused Dvalin to fall into a deep slumber. When he woke up, the people were afraid of him again. The rejection and the corrupted blood clots caused the Abyssal Order to manipulate him. He moved to Decabrian's old tower and became Stormterror. This brings us to the prologue of the game, where the Traveler destroys the corrupted blood clots and cures him. While it is not 100% confirmed, Azhdaha is speculated to be the Dragon Sovereign of Geo. For years, Azhdaha slept beneath Liyue, but was found by Zhongli. Azhdaha lived underground so long and longed to see the surface. Zhongli made a contract with him. Zhongli would bring him to the surface and give him eyes to see, as long as Azhdaha didn't hurt the people of Liyue. Unfortunately, Azhdaha would suffer from erosion, which, for those who don't know, it's an affliction that causes long-life beings to forget their memories and sense of self. Zhongli tried to slow down Azhdaha's erosion by sharing his power, but Azhdaha still harmed others. Zhongli and the Adeptus would seal him, but he never forgot Zhongli's betrayal. This created a vessel that contained his malevolence and tried to break Azhdaha out of his prison. This plan was stopped because another vessel containing the good side of his consciousness possessed a human and warned Zhongli. After the Traveler and Zhongli reseal him, Azhdaha says goodbye to Zhongli one last time. It's a really heartfelt scene, and it's one of my favorite scenes from Genshin. Scaramouche, the Wanderer, Hat Guy, etc. could have his own video. He was A's first attempt to creating a puppet to maintain her ideals of eternity, but when giving it the electro-gnosis, the puppet began to cry. A believed that it would be better for the puppet to live its own life, so she left it with a gold feather as proof of his noble origins. This was the first of 3 betrayals in the Wanderer's life. The puppet would be found and given the name Kabukimono, meaning wandering eccentric. Being abandoned since your creation is going to create some deep emotional scars. He didn't understand why he was abandoned and why he was so different and alone. At some point, he became friends with a young man named Niwa, who assured him that he was just as human as everybody else, but he just lacked a heart. The problem was, at the same time, Dottore was in Inazuma doing some skullduggery like he always does. Dottore disguised himself as a Fontanian named Escher and was there to improve their smelting process. The reality was that while the crystal marrow did improve it, it also was made from Obarashi's remains and released a malevolent energy that cursed the entire island. The Kabuki-mono went to get help from A, but she had already entered the plains of Euthymia. When he returned, Dottore told him that Niwa had abandoned them. He gave the Kabuki-mono a device to cleanse the cursed energy. Inside the box was a heart that Dottore said belonged to a subordinate that Niwa had killed. Obviously, Dottore lied to him. The reality was that Niwa had confronted Dottore and Dottore killed him. The heart in the box was actually Niwa's, but the Kabuki-mono did not know this. The Kabuki-mono would then befriend a small child, but that child had an unknown illness and soon died. This was the third betrayal and what led to the creation of Scaramouche. After becoming a harbinger, he was sent on multiple jobs by Piero. He was sent to investigate meteorites in Liyue, which is where the Sky is Fake lore drop happened. He went to Inazuma to oversee the creation of delusions and obtained the Electro-Gnosis. This is when Scaramouche went rogue and did his own thing. With the help of Dottore and the Academia sages, Scaramouche would attempt to ascend and become the new god of wisdom and finally host the Electro-Gnosis. The traveler Nahida stopped him and he learns the truth about Niwa and Dottore. He then decides to try and erase himself from history, but Irminsul doesn't really work like that. Scaramouche and his actions still happened, but it's not attributed to him. Scaramouche confronts his past, accepts his actions, and becomes the Wanderer, now with a new Animo vision. He stayed in Sumeria with Nahida and joined the Academia as a Vahumana student, focusing on political science. Funny enough, he has essays commentating on Inazuma's issues, which to be honest with you is probably the closest we're going to get to the Wanderer confronting A. He also played a key role in transforming Simulanka Durin into Mini Durin. The Wanderer is now a Nodcry, presumably to confront Dottore, which is long overdue. The Lord of Eroded Primal Flame is an abyssal monster called Gosoythoth. It's a Lovecraftian-esque monster that has no true form. His name is even an anagram to the Lovecraftian entity Yog-Sothoth. Gosoythoth has only really been mentioned in the Archon quest so far. It invaded not long after the Eternal Flame was extinguished. There isn't really much to talk about because it doesn't have much of a motivation. It's an entity of the abyss and its goal is to corrupt everything around it. It can spawn abyssal tumors and summon abyssal monsters to spread its corruption. Like the Tenebrous Papilla, it can access memories in the ley lines and mimic other creatures. The form we fight with Malvika is Shukato, the dragon sovereign of Pyro. It also mimicked the voices of previous Pyro Archons to get inside your head and screw with your mental. But the Traveler and Malvika were able to channel the power of Natlan's people and defeat it. When the cataclysm happened, A's sister Makoto went to fight in Conria alone. A was too late to save her and she died in her arms. To make matters worse, her friends would be corrupted by the abyss or afflicted with erosion. A is a character that has experienced multiple lifetimes of trauma, which resulted in her creating the Raiden Shogun puppet. She fears erosion after she saw how it affected her friends, and she fears retaliation from the Heavenly Principles. She saw the destruction of Conria firsthand and wants to preserve Inazuma's people and its culture, which is why she pursues her view of eternity. The puppet is there to fulfill the Archon's duty in Inazuma, while A can meditate in the plains of Euthymia to avoid erosion. The puppet is also erosion resistant and is there to make sure that A continues her pursuit of eternity. But meeting the Traveler and properly grieving her sister's death, A takes a more active role in Inazuma's politics and changes her view of eternity. This causes the Shogun puppet to believe that A is affected by erosion and sees her as a threat. After proving her resolve in a duel, A moves further away from her previous ideals. Apep is the dragon sovereign of Dendro. She's so massive that she has an entire world inside of her. She was nurturing these elemental life forms and was planning to release them into Teyvat, but then the Heavenly Principles came and stole a portion of her elemental authority. The Dragon King Nibelung had brought abyssal power to Teyvat to fight against the Heavenly Principles. The Dragon Sovereigns had heavily damaged the Primordial One, but they still failed. Apep still wouldn't give up though. She made a deal with King Deshret, who also wanted to break free from the Heavenly Principles. In exchange for his knowledge, King Deshret would be allowed to build his paradise in her domain. There was just one problem. King Deshret's knowledge was forbidden and corrupted everyone who possessed it. which meant Apep became corrupted. Now, when Nahida cleansed the world of forbidden knowledge, Apep was also cured, but her Dendro elemental energy became unstable. Luckily, Rukkhadevata, the previous Dendro Archon, had a plan. She used a portion of her elemental energy to create the Fire Seed, which could restore Apep. With the help of some special fungi, Nahida and the Traveler cure Apep. Apep still hates the Heavenly Principles as she should, but she no longer wants revenge. Instead, she chooses to be an observer. Arlecchino was raised in Fontaine, but she's part of the Crimson Moon lineage. She was an orphan that was raised by the House of the Hearth, which at the time was run by Crucibina. I don't want to say she was a caregiver, because she did not care about any of those kids. She made them fight to the death so she could find a new successor. Arlecchino was also close to Clairvy, who was Crucibina's biological daughter. Clairvy wanted to rebel against her mother and have it end in a stalemate. In the end, only Arlecchino and Clairvy were left. Clairvy accepted her death at Arlecchino's hands because she saw it as a way to gain freedom. A year later, Arlecchino fought and killed Crucibina and was given the position of Harbinger by the Tsaritsa. In contrast, Arlecchino's House of the Hearth is a lot less cruel, and Arlecchino actually cares about her children. That being said, she is still very strict. In her character quest, she was able to put Clairvy's spirit to rest. There's also something called Project Stuza, which is still mostly unknown, but it seems like it's a plan involving Pantalone and Pusinella, and it hinders Arlecchino and the House of the Hearth. The all-devouring narwhal is actually the pet of Serdologi, one of the 5 sinners, and the master of Childe's master, Skirk. This narwhal is also what inspired Childe's combat style. It potentially came to Teyvat because it actually followed Childe. For some reason, it likes to consume energy in the Primordial Sea, which is why it targeted Fontainians, because they originated from it. Neuvillette and the Traveler are able to stop the narwhal, but the energy released by the narwhal is what triggers the prophesized flood in Fontaine. Just a side note, if you were confused why Childe was incorrectly deemed guilty by the Oratrice, it's speculated that Focalor needed Childe to delay the narwhal by fighting it, which only could happen if he goes to the fortress of Meropide. Prophecies are weird. Oh yeah, also, the narwhal wasn't even at full strength when you fought it. The more you know. Hello, Rerir. Rerir is one of the 5 sinners and was the focus of the Welkin Moon Act 3. Before he was a sinner, he was an intelligence agent that was in charge of finding descendants of the Crimson Moon, which was something he hid from his fiancée Felindis. King Ermin was convinced that the descendants of the Crimson Moon were plotting to overthrow him, so he targeted anyone connected with the Crimson Moon. Tragically, Felindis is a distant descendant of the Crimson Moon and became a target. Things went from bad to disastrous when King Ermin blinded and imprisoned Dainleaf's brother Vedalfonir. This caused Dainleaf to get the others that would become sinners to free his brother. Then there was a release of abyssal energy and Felindis got attacked by monsters. Rerir went to save her, but when he did, she thought he was there to kill her and jumped into an unknown portal. Desperate to find Felindis, Rerir accepted abyssal power and became one of the 5 sinners. After completing the summer event, you can talk to this cactus man and he'll take you on a world quest. At the end of it, you fight a monster called the Bakunawa. The Bakunawa is on top of this list because it is genuinely terrifying. It was created by Reindotter and she couldn't even control it. It even swallowed a piece of her body. One of the 5 sinners Reindotter, fused with the shade of life Reindotter. That's how strong it is. Not even the Abyss can fully understand it. It is practically immortal. It was originally defeated by Tenok by blowing it up into an unknown amount of pieces. But not even that stopped it because it has been slowly regenerating. It took multiple Pyro Archons to build a temple to contain it. But even then, it reappeared about 20 or 30 years ago, but then disappeared with the entire Marjavari. The Bakunawa now lives in a separate abyssal simulation of the Marjavari. To get to the true version, you need to use a portion of the Bakunawa's power. The Bakunawa is also one of the materials that Albedo needed to give Minidurn a human form. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, go watch the saddest enemy tier list. It was a lot of fun to make. I'll see you guys next time. It might be a week, it might be a year.